Today's video is really special because we are going to bake atomic bread, which can be stored for up to 12 months. In addition, we will check if it is possible to bake bread with ordinary candles right on our table, in case of a total blackout or gas cutoffs in Ukraine. What's interesting is that for this recipe we don't need any flour, instead we will use 400 grams of ordinary oat flakes. Also, we need a small can of canned beans. We pour it together with the liquid into a cup and beat it with a blender. Beans have a lot of protein and fiber, which are very useful to the body in a challenging environment. We need to get such a homogeneous liquid and then pour it on the flakes. Now we need to add some nutritious foods to make our bread into a complete meal. We personally used walnuts, ordinary pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds and some flax and pistachios. Although you can add whatever you have at home and create your own recipe. Next, we add a tablespoon of salt to the bowl and put on disposable gloves to mix it all properly. We almost forgot about the main tester, who needs to inspect the smell of everything. Now we mix up all the ingredients together so they become this thick mass. Our mixture was too thick, so we added half a cup of plain water. After that, we poured about 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil, but I think you can also use butter. We leave the bowl aside and find some jars to bake our atomic bread. You can use any glass jar with lids. The only condition is that it doesn't have a narrow neck. The jar should be a straight cylinder, resembling a large glass. Our jar lids are these rubber bands, which we remove to keep them from burning down while baking. Before laying the dough, the jars should be well coated with vegetable oil so that the bread doesn't stick to the walls of the jar. Then, with the help of a spoon, we put our mixture inside. It should be well tamped so that there are no air bubbles and the bread does not fall apart. Before laying the dough, the jars should be well coated with vegetable oil so that the bread does not stick to the walls of the jar. We take the jars with their lids and place them in the oven preheated to 338 degrees Fahrenheit or 170 degrees Celsius. We also put the lids inside to keep them heated and kill all the bacteria and mold. After seeing the bread turn brown, we turn off the oven but leave the bread inside for some time. Meanwhile, we take a container and put the rubber bands and the lid from the third jar in it. Now we pour some hot water over them to kill all the pathogens living on the surface. After 20 seconds of such bathing, we take everything out and put it on a clean dry towel so that it absorbs all the moisture. We remove our bread from the oven, remembering to wear protective gloves, and put it on the table. If only you knew how tasty it smells. But we cannot lose time, and while the jars are still hot, we need to put the rubber bands on and seal the bread inside a jar. The high temperature allows the protection of the bread from bacteria. You see, even such a jar with a regular metal lid is fine for this kind of bread. We need to turn the jar upside down and knock it a little so that the bread comes off the walls. Now we leave them in this position in a cool place. But of course, we want to see the result. Cut it and let's taste what we've got. But after it cooled, the lids stuck to the wall so hard that it was quite difficult to open them. Just look how amazing is the bread we've got. It's beautiful, aromatic and crunchy. Its texture is much denser and less porous than the one we can buy in a store, as we did not add any yeast. But that was the plan. We needed to cram the maximum amount of nutrients and nuts into each jar, as we didn't want any airy pores inside. Thanks to all this, one small loaf of this bread has a bigger nutritional value than a big loaf of a store-bought bread. But what to do if you want to eat but you didn't bake any bread in advance and the light and gas were cut off? You can always fry eggs using the candle heater from the past video, but today we are going to do the impossible and create an oven allowing us to bake bread with regular candles. First, we have to knead the dough. To do this, we pour about 2 cups of flour into a large bowl and add 2.5 teaspoons of dry yeast. We add a spoonful of salt and about the same amount of sugar we got from the German ration packs. Then we add about 1 cup of water and mix it all up with a spoon and then with your hand until it all turns into a homogeneous mass that sticks to the bowl and gloves. This is actually what it's supposed to be. This gooey dough needs to be left in a warm place for about half an hour, during which it should at least double in size. We get back to the dough and stir it again. Now we add more flour to get rid of the stickiness. Mix it thoroughly, add a little more oil and form such a nice anti-stress scone. We do not have a bread pan, but we have this small cake pan, which can be used too. After coating all the balls with a thick layer of oil, we move our ball inside the pan and spread it out a bit on the bottom. Now the fun part, we need to assemble an oven for baking bread. As usual, we will make homemade candles, for which we will need wicks from ordinary cloth. We fill 3 cups with oil and place the wicks on the edges of the cup in the necessary amount. We have 4 wicks in each cup. To keep it from slipping down, we place little pucks in the glasses. We set our reactor on a platform and put around its edges these 3 bricks. It looks like an altar for some sort of ritual. Let's get it lighted. Use a chopstick to adjust the height of the flame so that it does not smoke. Put a metal grate on the bricks and put a large pan on top. It will serve as an oven. So that the mold does not come into contact with the hot bottom of the pan, put 3 large nuts here, and on top of them we place our form with the dough. The way it works is that the candles heat up the pan and the air inside the pan gets very hot, evenly transferring this heat to our future bread. We don't know if anything will come out of this, but we really hope so, so cover the oven with a lid and wait for the miracle. To keep more heat inside, we cover the top with a towel. In fact, the candles in such a mound give so much warmth, so after half an hour the room became significantly warmer. But it is better to keep an eye on such a stove and once every 10 minutes correct the wicks if they came off. The glasses didn't crack, which is a very good thing, and I had to refill the oil twice. All in all, it took about 140 milliliters to refill. 1 hour later, we removed the towel and saw this bread was increased in size and got a thin crust. It seems ready, but to make sure, we decided to turn it over and keep it in the oven for 10 minutes more. Then blow out the candles and leave it for another 10 minutes. Now let's finally take our bread out and taste it. Oh, it's so nice! You can see the crust and shape. Well, let's cut it. The knife is a little blunt. But just look at this perfect texture. The flesh turned out to be dark because we used dark bread flour. The smell and sensation of a warm slice of bread that you have just baked with your own hands is so wonderful it can't even be conveyed through camera. The enormous amount of heat emitted by the oven will warm your body, while the delicious bread will warm your soul during these difficult times. Share this video with a friend and it may even be useful to them.